Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming back to another episode of the Your Gray Matters podcast. My name is Jason, here as always with your host, my dad, Neil. Hey, Dad, how you doing?
I am great. Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
So this week we're going to continue our new format of splitting episodes into a couple parts. And this week we've got a really great topic in store for you. We're going to learn all about paralegals in Ontario and what they do. Do you have any quick thoughts about this episode, Dad?
Yeah, I have to tell you, this is very self-serving because I wanted to know the difference. And this is fascinating, folks. If you have some legal challenges from a speeding ticket to something, God forbid, more serious, you should always get professional help. But do you call a lawyer or do you call a paralegal? This will help you decide.
Yeah, so in the first half of the episode, which you're about to watch, you will understand the difference between lawyers and paralegals. You'll understand some of the regulations that regulate them, and we'll learn a lot about the personal journeys of our two paralegals that are on today, Wayne Gendell and Frank Alfano. Next episode, we'll dive into some maybe a little bit more lighthearted fare, like what are some of the craziest cases they've ever handled. So this week, without further ado, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know your thoughts on the first half of this episode, all about being a paralegal and needing paralegals in Ontario.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neil from the Your Gray Matters podcast, and we are glad to have you back. Thanks for watching us. And today we're going to do something interesting. We are diving into the world of paralegals, and we have two seasoned professionals with us today, Wayne Gendell and Frank Alfano. This episode is simply to help you understand, or it's just self-serving for me to understand how a paralegal can help you and help you navigate through legal challenges. I'm proud to introduce Frank Alfano first, and his credentials are LLB and LLM, which I found interesting. So Frank's practiced as a paralegal for over 34 years, defending people in criminal and provincial offenses court. He defended many regulatory discipline cases. He went to the University of London, England, got his Bachelor of Laws, and to Osgoode Hall, where he earned his Master of Laws, and that's what those credentials are. Frank has defended many notable cases. He's the go-to guy for other paralegals. Wayne Gendell, whose family I've known for many years, Wayne brings decades of well-rounded, diverse experience to the practice of legal services, whereas his previous career history involves work in the health field. He is a fellow entrepreneur, everybody, and you know by this show we love entrepreneurs. For Wayne, becoming a paralegal provided an opportunity to combine his entrepreneurial skill set, inherently prepared for advocacy representation. And then upon graduating from the paralegal course with honors and fueled with a passion for helping people, especially helping people to achieve justice in the areas of small claims court, traffic tickets, and summary criminal offenses, he opened GPS Legal, and that became the obvious path for Wayne. All these years later, these fellows have hundreds of clients. They have great Google reviews, and it's truly lucky for all of us that these fellows are doing what they're doing. Frank, Wayne, welcome to the Your Gray Matters podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it.
And we're glad to have you here today, guys. So before we explore this profession, let's get to our guests. Everybody, I want to find out from Wayne and Frank, why did you do this? Why did you start practicing? Wayne, maybe tell us a bit more about yourself.
You know what? When I was 16, my brother, who you just had on recently, gave me a book called The Shocking Truth About Water. And I know this sounds kind of strange, but once I read that book and started understanding natural health, I really wanted the truth. So I kept reading and then finding out about supplements and how impure they were, and I really got good into research. And I just wanted truth, and probably the other reason is I'm Libra, so automatically into justice, right?
So researching water and health, I could see how that might lead you into the law, actually.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted the truth, and there's so much deception going on in lots of industries, but especially health, and it just was a natural pathway to go. I had a health distribution business, but when online started, it just made more sense to go that way instead of having an office and distributing physically and having people come to my store. So I just went online, and I had time because I can fill orders online easy, and this just worked out
Very
perfect.
good.
Yeah.
Frank, what led you into the field? Why law?
So, yeah, I'll tell you that. But before I answer that question, I'm going to say that my opinions are my own. I'm currently not practicing. I'm in a state of transition. But I will tell you, I was 16 years old. I had a motorcycle. I drove way too fast. And I also delivered pizza and worked as a courier. So I amassed a whack of tickets. I was a street racer. And when I was 18, a lawyer who had his office next door took me under his wing and basically said, look, you're in traffic court so much. Why don't you learn the act and take on clients? And back then you didn't need a license. So he trained me. He would take time after hours and show me how to interpret statutes and different trial strategies. And I got to be honest, I did my first case when I was 19. I basically represented friends for free when I started. Anyone who was dumb enough to let a 19-year-old kid with long hair defend them. I brought a unique perspective, though, is that I came from the perspective of someone who'd been in trouble. I understood my clients' concerns, and I pretty much lost every case for the first 3 years. And around year 5, I was winning more than I was losing. I wasn't always the person I am today. It was humble beginnings, I will just say. And I came from a very different place than most people would start out. So when I have someone talking to me about their problem, most people say about me that I'm very much not judgy, that I completely understand. I've been there. I'm have no trouble sharing my story because, really that could have been any one of us. So I'm thankful for the opportunities I was given in my start.
Fascinating where we can turn whatever happens to us in our earlier years into something productive and progressive and helpful to people. And congratulations to the both of you. So let's get down to why Neil wanted this podcast. What's the difference between lawyers and paralegals, and who does what? And I'm going to
Put
leave it.
100.
You guys can fight it out who's going to speak.
I would say cost is the first thing. We're about half the cost of a lawyer. So, but yeah, in Ontario, I think we're one of the only provinces that has regulated paralegals. Um,
Oh,
we're regulated by what's called the Law Society of Ontario. So it is an organization. We pay fees and dues. They regulate us. We have professional development hours, the same as a lawyer. We just practice different areas of law, such as we don't practice like real estate and family law, patent law, civil matters over 35,000. So we practice provincial offenses. And then there's a whole bunch of areas called tribunals. So we have
yes.
landlord tenant board, family services review, human rights, animal care, criminal injuries. There's a whole bunch of tribunals we can also do. So we just basically practice a different area of law.
Okay. And I noticed you mentioned 35,000. So is there actually a financial level under which you can go, but you can't go over? I just took note of that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's for civil cases. So in other words, we call it small claims for paralegals. It's just under
Okay.
$35,000 claims.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The lawyers
All
do the
right.
big ones for millions, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But is it true, if I'm understanding you correctly, and I really do want to delve into this, because at the end of the day, this is about who the consumer should go to if they're having a challenge. And frankly, most people are quite frightened by the cost of lawyers. That's in no way a negative comment about law or
Hmm.
lawyers in any way. But
Yeah.
I don't think that people would come to paralegals solely to fit their budget. I think what you're telling me, it's much more and it's more targeted at the kind of cases that you do handle. Would that be correct, Frank?
It is. Paralegals have what's called a scope of practice, whereas lawyers don't. A lawyer can practice in any area, he can go in any forum. Paralegals are limited to what they can practice. But the flip side to that is while you're limited, it does force you to be really good at what it is you're doing. So, you're basically put into this niche market, and, from there, you're going to spend a lot of time doing a lot of the same thing, making you good at it, which might not necessarily be the case with some lawyers. And, if we're going to talk about comparing fees, got to think for a second that a lawyer went to school generally for 7 years, had a 10-month articling process, grueling bar admission. Paralegals go to school for a lot less time, and what they're being trained on is a very focused practice area. So that makes them, I don't want to say job ready, because that's like no one's job ready, not even lawyers, but it prepares them for a very particular type of practice. And that's why someone might want to hire a paralegal, and they don't have, $200K of student debt that they're trying to pay off. So fees tend to be less.
Well, I wasn't kidding before when I intimated about the knowledge level and one over the other, but I have to admit that I do have another friend who's a paralegal, and a client of mine needed some real help, and I was actually fascinated by his level of knowledge of the law. I mean, it was really interesting. He was actually doing preparation for the lawyer that eventually was required because it was a real estate matter. But do paralegals often assist lawyers, or is it separated? I'm just trying to look at the scope of
When the
duty.
system works well, we complement each other.
Okay,
So
that's a good way to put it.
paralegals tend to take cases that aren't worth a lawyer doing. For example, like Wayne mentioned, the small claims court has a cap of 35,000. For the money you're going to pay a lawyer, it may not be worth it for you to try to sue someone for less than 35,000 and hire a lawyer. But
Uh-huh.
paralegals cost a bit less. It's pretty focused, pretty uncomplicated. I think you'll benefit. So they complement. So there are circumstances where it makes sense to hire a paralegal, and other circumstances where it makes sense to go to a lawyer.
Okay, fair enough. So, this whole idea of going to a paralegal or going to a lawyer, I think one of the questions for people is, and perhaps you could both chime in, is how do people know when they need to hire legal representation? I think sometimes people just don't know.
Always. Don't ever do it yourself. DIY legal is the worst DIY ever.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Look,
Don't do it
you want,
yourself.
yeah, and the other thing is, you want to protect your rights. Even though you're charged, it doesn't mean necessarily it's the right charge too. So, in many cases, especially for criminal matters, bylaw, traffic, sometimes it's not the right charge, and you need to protect your rights. And there's all kinds of things like, there's time limits how long they have to, charge you and get your case through the system. So you need to know that, and that's why it's always good. Like Frank says, always hire somebody. You'll never navigate it on your own.
And,
And
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 I,
there's a
Well,
lot of
as well.
misinformation. Like there's a lot of misinformation online. Everyone Googles everything first, and they've always come across some outlier case that, something happened that is beneficial to them, but it's, someone got lucky or some other crazy circumstances happened. You can't compare like our education to your Google search, because what we're going to do is take all our experience, all our education, we're going to use good judgment, and we're going to find a solution to your problem, and we're going to do so in a way that's going to navigate a process. People who try to do it themselves find all kinds of misinformation, and they end up not equipped to deal with the practical realities of navigating a process. I always say this: you can read all the books on driving a car you like, but until you start getting in the car, hitting a gas and a brake and turning and signaling and looking over your shoulders, no reading will prepare you for that, right? And the benefit with us is we've done it, we have experience, we'll get you through the process in a way that's going to bring you out the other end the way you want.
and tell me if I'm wrong. I assume that people can meet with you the first time for a certain period of time to decide whether they need legal representation and not have to worry about their bank book, which I think makes people afraid.
Most offer a free consultation, usually up to 15 minutes.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then if it's
Fair
more
enough.
complicated, we'll go, we charge, but it's still a nominal fee.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, thank you for that, fellas, because everybody, part of what we do here at Your Gray Matters podcast, as you know, is introduce things that are available. but you may not be aware of them. And this is a great thing for people to know. And I'm glad that you both are on here explaining this.
All right, so that's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Dad, wasn't it fascinating learning about some of their histories and what brought them to become paralegals?
Yeah, sometimes you have to go through experiences to find a way to get out of them. And certainly Frank and Wayne have done that. These two fellas are really eye-opening. It's good for all of us.
So please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and come back on Thursday evening when we'll hear about some of the wackiest cases that these two have ever handled. It's something you're not going to want to miss.